What if the Magium is the primordial plane itself? Maybe the Magium is like an ancient guardian tasked with protecting the fabric of existence. Well, who would task it then? What if the Magium is everything and nothing at the same time? Maybe the Magium is the reason why the planes are separated in the first place. I think I like this one. What if the Magium is the primordial plane? Which is slightly different from what I said. But yeah. What if the Magium is the primordial plane itself? A plane of existence with a will of its own? Yeah, that sounds about right, because I have seen that in multiple manhwas as well. Darren says, I suppose that wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility, considering all the crazy things you've seen lately, but wouldn't this imply that the earthen plane itself is also a part of the Magium then? Then why would the Magium need these crystals to connect to our plane of existence if that were the case? My guess is that the crystals have been around from before the split happened, which is why they resonate more strongly with the Magium than the earthen plane. I say, obviously making a lot of assumptions here, but so maybe there's a better explanation for all of this that I'm simply not seeing right now. Anybody else have any ideas? Okay, hear me out, guys. Adric says, as he briefly raises both of his hands in the air briefly to get our attention. What if, when this split happened, most of the beings from this primordial plane, or whatever it's called, died, all except for ones that were too powerful to be killed, and this being eventually became the Magium? That sounds ridiculous. So the Magium would be, I mean, it's possible, but it's ridiculous sounding. So the Magium would be kind of like their equivalent to Araka then, Darren says, some entity that would just kept absorbing other denizens of the primordial plane until it became almost impossible to kill. Yeah, Hadrick says, that's what I was thinking of. Well, if nothing else, I suppose this would at least explain why the Magium seems to hate Araka so much, Darren says. Maybe she reminds it of its former self. I think you're all forgetting one important detail, Kate says, as the rest of us now turn to look at her. We already know that there are multiple versions of Araka that exist simultaneously across the various universes, but from what I could tell, there appears to be only one Magium. Araka told us that she had to enter the Magium's realm in order to be able to travel to the different other worlds during the God of Trials ritual, which means that the Magium must act like some sort of bridge that connects all the universes together. We also know that the Magium came here by mistake, looking for a different Araka than the one in our universe, which strongly suggests that there is only one entity overseeing all the parallel worlds instead of there being a different Magium assigned for each universe. If a powerful being from one of these many primordial universes across the various universes were to have survived the split, like you say, then it would have also needed to ascend beyond the concept of time and space, creating its very own world between worlds, full of contradiction and impossibility that Beria and Layla told us about when they described. Rick says suddenly as he begins to mess with his hair with both hands. This is beginning to make my head hurt. How can you guys even keep up with this conversation anymore? Can we exchange the topic to something a little easier to understand? I know that it is not like we need to exactly know what the Magium is. At this point, I'd be happy to know how to avoid it, how to defend myself from it if it ever tries to kill us again. Or did the other Arca manage to hide from it all this time anyway? Why would a being as powerful, as knowledgeable as the Magium would even need our help to find her in the first place? She probably hid the true coordinates of our universe so the Magium couldn't find her world no matter how hard it tried, Arca says. I know that is what I would have done if I were in a place. But you give the coordinates, Magium, her real world's coordinates, right? Darren says. Does this mean that we don't need to worry about her during the next God of Ritual trial? Arca says. As much as I love to think that were the case, I don't really see how an Araka could possibly kill so easily. Even if she is just a copy. What do you mean a copy? It's you from a different time. There are many other ways to conceal yourself from the Magium aside from simply hiding your universe's coordinates. I'm sure the other Araka wouldn't hesitate to use all of the aces up her sleeve if she felt that she was getting backed into a corner. If I were to take a bet, I bet we'll most likely meet her again in the next ritual, and she'll be more pissed than ever, so good luck. Fantastic, Darren says. Should we also accept the Magium to come back here with a vengeance when it realized that the coordinates you gave it were useless? Nah, Arca says. What the Magium saw were my memory, so it knows that I wasn't lying or withholding any information, so it doesn't have anything else to gain from us. It will probably have to continue to chase other Arca on its own from now on, just as it was doing before it encountered us. And what if it decides to come back for whatever reason? Darren says. What then? Do we just stand there powerless again, pray to all gods that we are trying to kill? That's such a good line. Do we just stand here powerless again? Pray to all the gods we are trying to kill. that Araka will pull through and save our sorry behinds one more time. Darren makes a good point, Kate says. For the moment, our only strategy in these types of situations is to overly rely on Araka and to hope that everything will work out in the end. There has to be something more we can do. I think a good starting point would be better understand just how exactly these primordial spells are supposed to work. Because I simply can't bring myself to understand how a being that exists beyond time and space can be influenced by any of the types of techniques, and regardless of its complexity. Now here's the thing. Out of all of them, I think the magical theory part is the domain of Barry. He has not shown off his prowess all that much, but I think Araka should focus on teaching him like whatever she knows, because he will probably be able to do a much better job explaining things, or like numbing it down, or like giving a different perspective on it if he has just the base information, considering how smart he is. Space can be influenced, yeah. The medium itself may exist outside the boundaries of time, but that is not the form in which it interacts with people, Araka says. On the rare occasions when the medium ever comes into contact with someone, it typically does so through the manifestation of his will, so to speak. I prefer to call them fragments. These fragments often operate independently of each other, and they usually have a singular purpose in mind. Despite their overwhelming power, they have their limitations which can be exploited. Among their many limitations, the most important one is that they're bound by the constrictions of the time like the rest of us, which makes it possible for us to influence them. Oh, and just to be clear, the entities that have tried to erase us from existence so far were both Magium fragments, even if I may have called them just Magium in the past for simplicity's sake. Wait, hold on, that makes no sense. We traveled to the Magium's realm, so wouldn't Magium be there? Why is it still a fragment even in the Magium's realm? For someone who earlier said they didn't want to risk getting erased from existence, you sure are giving us a lot of information about Magium all of a sudden. Adric says, is there any particular reason for this unexpected change of heart? My theory is that the Magium only cares if you reveal its true nature to people who don't already know about it. Any information other than that can be given out freely without consequences, Araka says. There are 3 words in particular that I'm trying to avoid, because these are the words that led to Illuna and Flower inability to speak about the Magium, and they are also the same 3 words that I was about to say right before we were almost erased from existence during Selkram's trial. As long as I don't say these words, that I feel best summarized what exactly the Magium is, I think I can afford the small risk of talking about the Magium's fragments and their weakness while we are situated outside its realm. Interesting, Darren says. So it should be fine to ask you more details about the primordial magic then, right? Because I'm wondering, for example, if you knew how many other people are currently able to cast these type of spells aside from you and the God of Fate. That's a tough question, Haruka says. Technically, most of the gods and also some of the other powerful spirits from the magical plane should have the potential to cast the primordial magic. But I can't tell you with a certainty which ones usually know these techniques aside from Memphier, because I haven't really spoken to them much in the past 5,000 years, so I have no idea what they've been up to lately. If we are talking about people on the earthen plane who might know such techniques, however, I can't really think of any other example except for Aiden, maybe that old sage Azarius. How did he find out about it? They both strike me as the type who would have the knowledge, then the power and the ingenuity to research such techniques by now, despite their relatively young age compared to the most spirits in the magical plane. And what about our group, Kate asked. Out of all the people in this room, who do you think have the most potential to learn primordial magic? The people in this room, Arka says, seemingly in a state of complete shock that Kate would have even thought to ask such a question. Are you being serious right now? Yes, Kate says. I'm not asking you whether any of us would be suited to learn this type of magic or not. I'm only asking you strictly in terms of potential. If you all absolutely had to choose just one member of our group to teach primordial magic to, who would you choose? If we're talking strictly in terms of potential, then it's probably going to be Barry, I'm guessing, because he is smart and he has a lot of knowledge too. He has read tons of books, Haruka says, as she appears to be cracking her brains in an attempt to come up with a legitimate answer to Kate's if I absolutely had no other choice than to pick someone from my group. I would probably say that. She pauses for a short while, as if the words she were about to say were simply refusing to come out. Barry would be my most likely choice, Haruka says, likely in a tone that suggests how utterly disgusted she is with herself. for having allowed herself to even consider such an option. That is hilarious. Obviously, this would be the most logical choice. I was expecting you to say that. I felt like you were about to puke when you said those last words. You're right. Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. I never knew you had such high opinion of me. That sounds sarcastic. I don't think we should go with the first one. That is hilarious. Though obviously that would be the most logical choice. I was expecting you to say that. That sounds funny though. Shit, let me think.